Hey Phantom Fam, Kate here, and I'm popping in before today's episode to tell you about a podcast I've been enjoying recently. Gone But Never Forgotten is a true crime podcast that covers everything from serial killers, missing persons cases, unsolved mysteries, and everything in between. Since April 2021, Lance has given a voice to those that can no longer share their own stories, while at the same time diving into the psychology behind why people commit the crimes we are all so fascinated by. With over 80 episodes to listen to, spanning topics like the Black Dahlia murder, the mind-boggling case of Madeleine McCann's disappearance, John Wayne Gacy, and more, there's plenty to listen to. So, if you're looking for a new podcast to add to your list, something to fill that true crime void, or simply wanting to learn more about criminal psychology, give Gone But Never Forgotten a listen. You won't regret it. You can find it on all major platforms as well as on social media. So stay spooky, and let's get into today's episode. Hello, Phantom Fam, and welcome back to another episode. We have a special treat for you today, if you haven't read the title of this episode. And, you've come to expect that I'm Kate.
I'm Nat.
And I'm Nyko.
And this is Wading into the Void. All right, so this is a special episode because we have another wonderful guest, and, she does something a little different, something many of you might not be familiar with.
And we're ready to learn all about it.
Yes. We had a private session with her. She's pretty fucking awesome, and we're ready for you to hear all about her. So come on, give us a little intro. Who are you? What do you do?
Hi guys, thanks so much for having me on here. I'm really excited, and the session I did with you guys were super cool. I really liked it. So thank you for inviting me here on your podcast.
Thank you for being here.
So I call myself a soul coach. That's a weird term, probably I wouldn't have used a long time ago, but I realized I kind of really like to help people connect to their soul self, so now my title is a soul coach. In doing that, I help people learn how to intuitively heal themselves, and one of the tools that I use is the Akashic Records, and so that's the session I did with you guys, was tapping into the archives of your soul through the Akashic Records, and so that's used to help people.
And it was so cool.
It was very, very cool. So maybe let's talk a little bit about the Akashic Records and exactly what they are.
Yeah, so the Akashic Records it's the records of, it's like your soul's history. It's like going into Google and typing in, what's the history of my soul? Different lifetimes that you've had throughout your different incarnations of your lives. And so that's why we're able to, in your guys' session, we did a past life session, and you're able to access your past lives through there. And you can use it as a healing tool to get a higher perspective of yourself on a soul level, not just you and your current timeline as Nat and Kate, right? So
yes,
or for whoever else wants to check it out, so it's just a deeper way of getting to know yourself.
Yeah, I know for me personally, it did there were so many weird little ties in with who I am currently right now. So so many weird little facts are like, oh, that adds up, that makes sense. And I know it was definitely the same for Nat.
Yeah,
so
definitely. So I definitely think that we should talk a little bit about our experience a little later on in the episode, because I think that would be really fun to kind of just, go through what each of us experienced, and if we've tried it again after that on our own.
Yeah.
And so let's kind of jump into the tarot real quick, and then we'll jump back out and, go back to our topic for today. So let's see that. So the Oracle deck that we have for today is really pretty. It is the Wild Mystic Oracle Guidebook, written and illustrated by Anastasia Catrice. What a beautiful name.
Right.
So it is another black and gold deck with some gold gilded edges, because that's my vibe. I love it. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shuffle, and you just let me know when to stop, and then we'll read what it's about. So
Okay.
These ones are a little hard to shuffle because I quite literally just took them out of the package. But
It's okay. Whatever comes out meant for me today.
yeah.
Yes.
Right. Stop.
Okay. So I'm holding this chunk. Do we go forwards or backwards?
Forwards.
All right.
Always forwards. Always forwards.
Ooh. Oh, this is... I haven't had a chance to actually look at the cards, but they're all nature based.
Oh.
They're really cool. This one's super cool. I'm excited to read what it's about. So let's see. Also, it comes
And we would love your take on what it means, since you work with the cards a lot, and you definitely have a better understanding of the meanings and all the connections than we do. So that would be awesome.
So my cat, you might hear him at some point because I have my door open and he just hurtled in here. But the card that we got for today is the bear, and it represents rest. And this is what it looks like. It's really cool. It's like a big bear with some kind of wheel, gold wheel symbol, and it's not focusing on the bear. And then there's a little bear that's sleeping in a hibernation in its little den. That's what it looks like. So that's really cute. I like that. It kind of reminds me of the Strength Major Arcana, which is normally a lion, but kind of looks the same. So let's see. So this card represents the winter months and essential rest. In nature, hibernation is part of survival for many creatures. The body is calmed for slumber through the cold months. Metabolism is slowed. Physical activity is reduced. It is the tranquil time of silence before the song of spring. In today's busy world, it is important to take time to rest, recuperate, and reinvigorate yourself. Unlike the heron, who requires psychological rest, bear urges physical rest. This card tells you to reserve your energy and take a moment to look inward. On the bear's forehead is the symbol for the wheel of the year. Okay, so that's what that is. Rest is a crucial part of the yearly cycle. Humanity's need for rest has caused us to create holidays, vacations, and seasonal celebrations. This card is a reminder that we all have our own cycles of being, to which we should listen. Whether you're a night owl or an early bird, if the darkening seasons affect your mental health, or if you menstruate, cycles can affect your mood and way of life. This card is a reminder to listen to your needs and rest when required. So that's the bear card, and there was some more information. Let me see what else it had. It has correspondences. So its element is earth. Its flora is lavender, chamomile, passion flower, and valerian. Its stones are rose quartz, hematite, malachite, amethyst, howlite, and smoky quartz. And its spell work is sleep and dream work, calling on the reserves of energy and strength, self-care, winter rites, and the Yule ritual. So that's kind of cool.
Is there anything that you get from that?
1,000%. So before we even chatted, I called in all my spirit guides, and the bear is... I met my bear spirit guide while I was in exploring my own Akashic records. I'm connected to bear through a Greek goddess that I'm also connected to, Artemis.
Yeah.
And so she's letting me know she's here with me right now. That was like, wow.
I just got goosebumps.
That's cool. Yeah.
And I feel like over the winter, especially here in Canada, it's spring right now, but we have deep winters here in the north. So I'm just getting out of hibernation. I've been like in a little bit of a mama bear mode as well, so I feel like I'm coming out of my rest mode, you know?
Yes.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that a lot. I mean, I relate to the card too, because my body's dying from playing softball yesterday. But we're here.
Which she hasn't done in 20 years?
No. That'd be 4 years
like
old.
it.
No, it feels like it. I haven't played since middle school, so... And I'm not much of an exerciser now, so you take that as you will. I'm very sore.
Yeah. I can imagine.
Yeah. So, alright, so let's go to our tarot, and this is a really cool deck. This is a very dreamy, fantastical, medieval type deck, and I really love it. It is the Deviant Moon Tarot by Patrick Valenza, and, like, look at this giant book that comes with it. This is just beautiful. Like, it's crazy. Crazy cool.
It's Nat's coffee table book.
Yeah, it's my coffee table book. So, yeah. So let's just go through and you just let me know again.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Forwards or backwards?
Behind.
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 Okay.
Oh!
All right.
I'm not alone! Everyone's always like, only forwards.
Only forwards.
And I'm like, send it to the back.
Sometimes you gotta switch it up. Okay, it's gonna take me a second because this book is gigantic. I'm actually pretty close to it right now, so.
It really is abnormally large. So.
Can you hear the pages?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Just an ASMR episode over here.
So we got the upside down, the reversed meaning. So this is really cool. We got the Hierophant. Look at that. Isn't that weird? It's like such a weird deck, but it's so cool. I love it. I love it. It's very dreamscape, medieval. That's how I would explain it. So the reverse meaning of the Hierophant says this: a conflict may arise over an established tradition, causing anxiety and turmoil. You might find yourself unable to break free from the powerful grip of your old beliefs. Superstition and fear cloud your thoughts, leaving you unwilling to challenge the norm. You may also have difficulty changing the ritualistic paths embedded in your mind. Bad habits seem insurmountable.
But we did pull it reversed.
That's the reversed.
Oh, that's the reverse.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, Nyko, I don't know what you got going on, girl, but... Just kidding. I'm sure your spirit guides know what's up and they'll help you.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just feel like for me, sometimes, you know, when you go on a spiritual path, a lot of people, your friends, your family members don't always understand what you're doing.
Katie! Wait, that just reminded me of what we're probably going to talk about later in the episode. But your experience.
What one?
Your first experience with the Akashic Records.
Yes. A little bit, yeah.
It's like literally the whole thing.
I'm like, what one? I'm
right.
like, there's plenty. No,
Yeah,
I thought those were great cards.
Yeah, I like those. And for me, it resonates because obviously, you know, we've been in lockdowns for a few years, and now this is the first summer my kids are going back to visit family back on the East Coast, and, you know, they're into this stuff just like I am as well, and my family back home are a little more, you know, religious. So maybe it's just I've been thinking like, I wonder what might come up they're on summer vacation, you know. But
yes, must just be like an East Coast thing in general. Like, That's how a lot of it is over here, unless you're in, like, specifically Salem, Mass, or, like, other very, I want to say, liberal counties as far as, you know, United States politics go. Mm-hmm. You're basically just gonna get all the religious people that are like, you're wrong! So...
You're wrong!
East Coast Canada is very liberal as well, so...
Okay. So, Nat, do you have any immediate questions?
No. I'm gonna be honest.
She's always so good getting the ball rolling. Nyko, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got involved with this, if you're comfortable? We always kind of like to start from the beginning. Yeah. So set your own boundaries.
Take us on a timeline.
Ooh, there you go.
Yeah. Actually, my timeline's very interesting. It's so all over the place. Yes. So, because if you would have even asked me like 4 or 5 years ago, I would have said, yeah, I don't really believe in the Akashic records myself as well. So and I'm that type of person who I have to see it to believe it. And I've seen a lot of things that other people don't believe. So it's also hard being like, hey, yeah, I'm not crazy. You know, I'm just seeing these things. But yeah, so when I was younger, I was very intuitive naturally, and I would see things when I was younger. A lot of my childhood memories were suppressed, so I didn't actually recover a lot of them until I had a shamanic healing done a few years ago. But the main point of what happened to me in one of my dark nights of the soul, I'll call it, when I was 13, my grandma had cancer, and I was in the room with her when she was dying. I wasn't supposed to be there, and I watched her die. And she was very, very religious, very Christian. My grandfather was a preacher. And so she had me believe, you know, she's going to be with her Savior Jesus, and she's going to heaven. And so in my 13-year-old mind, I was okay with her death. And then I saw her dying, and she sat up in the bed and looked at me. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is fake. There's no heaven. She didn't go to heaven. We're just sitting here. She's looking at me. And then nobody else saw what was happening. And then she laid back down in the bed and took another breath, like came back to life again, and looked at me and was like, what's wrong, my darling? And they had to get me out of the room. It was so freaky. My grandfather, the princess, said, like, she didn't want to die in the room where I was. And then she went, you know, she came back, and then she died a few days later. Yeah. And so I was pretty religious before that point, and then after that moment I became atheist suddenly for 10 whole years. Yeah. I was like, no, there's no such thing as all of this stuff. And my dad's an atheist also, so it was very easy for me to become atheist, and a lot of my family members, they're into science. And so I was like, okay, I became really fascinated with physics and all kinds of different sciences, and I was like, no, there's no such thing as any of this. And so then for about 10 years, I didn't believe in anything, and I put up all these blocks, so I guess I wasn't really tapped into my gifts during that time. And then after I had my kids, I slowly started having an awakening again and started seeing things and stuff coming back to me. And then I was having these memories of when I was little, and I would see all of these things. And so I went and saw a tarot lady first when my kids were born. And to me, still at this time, because my grandfather was super Christian and religious, tarot was like taboo. So I wasn't... I didn't even know if I believed in it, but when I went to see her, she told me some things she told me about my grandma dying, that I had seen her, and she said that I had been wide open receiving all of these things since I saw my grandma die. And she's like, you know, you're really gifted, you can read tarot. And I thought she was literally foolish. Like, I'm like, no. You know, Christian girl who's been atheist for 10 years. There's no way. And so she's like, come over to my house on Friday and we'll read some cards. And so I came over on Friday to her house, read tarot cards, picked them up for the first time in my life, and told her next door neighbor her whole life story, and we're all crying, and I'm like, what the heck's going on? Like, who am I? And from there, I started getting more mentors to help me understand my gifts. And at first I would just see things like shadows and hear voices. And then in 2016, I went through something really traumatic. There was a wildfire here. And sometimes when you go through a traumatic thing, it can really turn on your gifts and awaken your gifts. The trauma can just give you a boost in that. And so that's what happened with me. And ever since that moment, it was like, then all of a sudden it wasn't just shadows and voices. I could see everybody in their different lifetimes. If I touched somebody, it would be changing. Their face would change from a different time. Like sometimes they're a man, sometimes they're a woman. I couldn't touch people. I couldn't leave my house. If I saw ambulance drive by or a fire truck, I could see where they were going to and if someone burned or died in a car crash. And I was starting to think I was going crazy, honestly. And then I was remembering myself from a different time and place, and I kept getting all these past life memories of myself. And so I started, one of my friends mentioned to me, she's like, it sounds like you're accessing the Akashic Records. And so I didn't know what that was at the time, and I looked into it myself, and I was like, there's no way I signed up for all this bullshit in this lifetime. I'm not any of this. And so I didn't believe at first. And then a few months later in 2016, like I had agoraphobia. I couldn't even leave my house for like a whole 18 months. And it was like August, I think maybe, of 2016, and I was looking in the mirror and my face started to change and I didn't look like myself. And it was like someone else was looking back at me in the mirror, and she told me that she was me. Her name was Nyko, and so that's why I use the name Nyko now, but my actual name is Nikki. So her and I, and that's why I call myself Soul Coach Nyko, because I channel through her and she helps me. So I met her, and my higher self, she said I was from like a future timeline, because she was trying to explain how time is not linear. It doesn't go in chronological order, and our soul can choose to be in any place when we need to. And she explained to me that Earth is a school, and we come here, our souls come here to learn and evolve and grow. And I still thought she was full of shit in the beginning until she's easy to talk to, but she's telling me all these things and showed me all of these things in my own soul's archives, that I'm supposed to do all these things. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm just this little island girl from the East Coast. I can't do all these big badass things. And slowly she started to show me things, and I saw all the synchronicities, like you guys said, when you went into your session and you saw all these little things that related to this timeline. Slowly shown all of the things that related to this timeline, and she showed me how I was like, okay, what's my purpose here in this timeline? And she said, I'm a researcher and I came to study the systems here. And so that makes sense of like why my mom grew up in the foster care system, why my dad was traumatized by religion through the religious system, why I worked for the education system. Both of my kids have medical issues through the medical systems. And so I was like, suddenly it was, the puzzle pieces was going together of, okay, maybe that is why I signed up for all this bullshit. Because I wanted it. So it was like I was seeing it from a higher perspective. And so I spent the last 7 years really exploring my own Akashic records. And it wasn't even until about 4 years ago that I fully was believing that it was. After I had spent 3 years seeing so many different synchronicities, finally I was like, okay, I think this is real, guys. So I started exploring and doing sessions with other people, and it was just mind-blowing the things that was happening, because a lot of people read the records for you, and I don't believe in that. Like, for example, if I would have just sat with one of you guys and said, hey, this is what happened in your past life, but instead I'm guiding you through it yourself, and you're getting to experience it. It's not like just some random tarot synchronicities telling you that this happened, you're actually seeing it, and I'm seeing it at the same time, and we're writing the same notes. And so because I'm guiding you in, I feel like it's way more empowering. And so I was shown in my records as well that that's what I'm supposed to do, is help people read their own, to connect to their own selves in this way. And the more that we connect to ourselves and figure out our own selves, I feel like we'll be able to show up a lot better for everybody else in our lives. And then I just feel like everybody should learn to do this. Like, it's so intriguing to me every time I take somebody into a session, even when I do sessions myself. So now here I am, fully believing and helping other people access their own. So
yeah, no, that's great. And out of curiosity, if you're comfortable sharing, how many past lives have you accessed through your Akashic records?
For my own, a lot. A lot.
You're like, more than I can count.
Yeah. And I have a coach too, because like my coach said to me, she's like, sometimes it's hard to be present in the now when you're in awareness of so many past life, future life things that's happened. But sometimes I'm not even in my human form. Sometimes I'm in a different galaxy, in a different time and place. Or one time I was a tree. I was this big, huge, giant tree, and
I love it.
yeah, just taking turns in different. I don't know if you've heard of this book. It's called The 9 Dimensions of Consciousness, and it just explains the different dimensions in which we go through. The second dimension is animals and like the telluric realm. So like fairies and animals and plants and those types of things are in the second dimension, and then humans are in the third dimension. So and then the fourth dimension is just, the awareness of, oh yeah, we're not just humans here. We are a soul, and we're here to do all these things, right? And so then dimension is just when we're conscious of all of those things, right? And so that's what my soul told me, that where I originated from was somewhere else out in the galaxy. And then it was interesting because that space, I had always, since I was a little girl, been looking up at the sky and seeing the pattern in the stars. And then I actually went to that place, and everything, all of the synchronicities, it was just mind-blowing to me seeing all of those things. So yeah, I've been to a lot of different past lives, healing a lot of different things, and some of them were scarier, and some of them were a lot more pleasant, but your soul always shows you what's for you, so in the right moment. So I like that.
And if you were to go back to one of these past lives, like, for example, I'm not going to get into it too much because I want Nat to share it herself. She had something kind of like a strange revelation, right? How do you advise people after they access a record of that nature? Like, how do you recommend they go forward?
In what nature?
Something not so positive. Something a little darker.
Yeah, so I trust that your soul is ready for that thing, when you do the healing within it and not getting attached to that thing. The point of your soul showing you something from the past like that is perhaps it's resonating with something that's going on in your current timeline, right? So you set an intention before you go in, and so it makes more of a difference to make it a healing thing for you because you set that intention. And I find most people don't get stuck on that thing. It brings forward more of clarity. Do you find for you, especially Nat, that it did bring forward clarity for you?
Yeah, I thought it was a really powerful experience, even though it was really a little scary. I was like, wow, that's so cool that, like, I kind of found my own power in that situation, and I think that's kind of what I took from it. And I can't wait to, like, explain it to everyone, like, from start to finish. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah. because we've both been holding off on sharing anything about it until we got you on, so we could also kind of get your take on things too. So we've been like sitting and bubbling in excitement with all this like information since our session.
So I do have some questions. I've been writing questions as we go. If you see me typing, that's what I'm doing. Because I don't want to interrupt anything. But so you have Nyko, and you said that she's like your original guide that you met, right? So does everyone have like one main like soul guide or like keeper that's like the strongest out of all of them?
I think so. Most of the other people I've brought in, sometimes I feel like there's a team. There might be one that comes through the most. Nyko is the one I channel through the most and connect with, but most people have a team, and sometimes it'll be the same one, or sometimes it'll be a couple different ones.
Because I know from my experience, the one of the first ones that I met, ever since then, like, I'm thinking about her all the time. I feel like I see her everywhere. I feel like she's always, like, talking to me. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So that's why I thought to ask that, because I was like, it feels like this one's the only one that, you know, continues some kind of communication with me. So...
Meanwhile, I'm the asshole that can't remember the name of the one I met, because I'm awful.
But, and then, so I had another question, was you mentioned this, like, really quickly a little bit earlier, because you said your past life, but also future life. So, there is a way for you to go to a future life when you go through your timeline?
Yes, yeah. So what Nyko explained to me was that, so all of the realities are existing at the same time, right? And so here on Earth, we're the physical form, you know, we come down, we have a body. And so when we're not on Earth and we're exploring different places, our soul, it's not like it is here on Earth. We don't have days, we don't have night and day, we don't have months or seasons. Your soul does what it chooses to do in that moment. And so that's why we're able to go to the future. So Nyko actually told me that she's like, I guess you would say it's from the future, but since time's not real, it's not actually in the future. It's just in a more advanced timeline than here on Earth, because she told me that where she is now, it's kind of like hundreds of years in the future from Earth. She said there's no diseases, everybody is such high vibrational that we don't get sick, there's no hate, there's no negativity. Everybody just does what they're so evolved that they get to do what they want for their soul in that moment.
That's really
I like
cool.
that.
Yeah. So I know Katie and I are gonna go into, you know, what our experience was, what our records look like, you know, all of that jazz. But I was curious, like, what does it look like for you? Because ours are so very different. I want to know what yours is like.
Yeah, and no two people have ever had the same. Your soul chooses to show you in such a unique way. I've worked with hundreds of people, and I'm always impressed with how the soul chooses to relay messages to people.
It's really so interesting how different each experience is. And that's why once you experience like more than one like person doing this, it's like, wow, how would anyone think that this is something that's like not real? It's like crazy.
Yeah, and that's what's helped me believe in it even more, because it's just so unique how what you find in there's no way I would have known that's from your current timeline, right? So and it resonates. It's so unique. But for me, it's really cool. It's very, very big. So when I had some of my childhood memories removed, I realized that I had actually been accessing mine since I was about 4 years old. So, but I wasn't in awareness of this until 2016, because I was doing it unconsciously in my sleep or in my dreams, astral traveling. And so what initially happened to me when I was a little girl was my grandparents were religious, so I was very into angels and things. So Archangel Gabriel came to me, and I was in this big, he called it a hall. It was like a dark room, and there was it was like foggy. I couldn't really see anything, but I didn't feel scared because the angel was with me. And as a little girl, I had a lot of traumatic things happening in my life, and so I guess my sleep for me was like my escape from my real escape from my real. And so I would follow him into this big hall, and I'd get to this it was like a wall, and there was keys, like hundreds and hundreds of keys, and they had all these different shapes on them, and they were all disorganized. And he told me that I could take a key, and any door would whatever key I picked, a door would open up, and I could go into that door, and I could explore while I'm in there. And he said, just don't lose the key. I can reimagine it at any time and come back whenever I want to. And so the very first one, when I started doing that, it was the keys were all disorganized, and now when I go in there, the keys are actually, I have them all organized. So like the circle ones are all in a pile. So I got to see a few years ago that's how many times I'd actually been in there and organized all of the keys. Wow. Because I figured they were, and they're all organized inside of this big grand hall, and it's actually behind a waterfall, in like this big rock cave thing. So
that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's so interesting how there's like some similarities to how mine is. That's really cool. I can't wait to talk about mine. I'm like, anyways, what was I gonna say? I had another question, but I didn't write it down, so that's why I forgot. Oh no! So would you say that as a child, your Archangel Gabriel was like in that moment like a soul guide, or like a keeper? Or?
Well, definitely. In that moment, what happened? Do you mind if I share what happened in that scene?
Go right ahead.
At 4. Okay, so I went in, and I remembered having this dream afterwards. So I went into this room, and I felt really safe because the angels were with me. And so I went into this room, and I saw a little girl crying, and she kind of looked like me, but it wasn't me. And it was, all I could see was her laying in her room on a bed, and she was really, really upset, like something really scary was happening to her, and I could see this like black shadow above her, and I could feel, because I'm so sensitive to energy, I could feel what she was feeling. And Archangel Gabriel asked me, I was just crying and so upset, and I said, what's happening? And I said, I want to help her. And he's like, okay, how would you like to help her? And I didn't know. I was 4. I didn't really know what to do, but I just went over and I wiped the tears off of her face. And I had no idea who the little girl was yet. And then it was weird because when we were walking to the scene where I was with her, it was like I was traveling through a big umbilical cord. And so then I realized afterwards that this was my mother. This was my mom when she was a little. And so I wiped the tears from her face, and then the angel asked me, what do I want to do now? And I was like, I think something bad is happening to her. I couldn't see what was happening. I could just see a black shadow and that she was afraid. And I said, I need to take this memory from her. And he said, okay. So I actually took a feather from his wing, and I placed it on her third eye, and I removed this memory from her of this bad experience was happening to her. And he looked at me and he said, okay, this is your first angel feather for your wings that you're earning. And he said, in this lifetime, you're going to earn a lot of these feathers to gain your wings. And so it was crazy. I did a session a year ago also with my grandfather, who had passed away a few years ago, and he said, let me see your wings, pull them out. And I pulled them out, and now they were huge, and I had all these feathers. So I was thinking, oh my gosh, how many times have I went and helped somebody out and all these feathers? But that was my very first memory of going in and doing that. And my mom my mom had a traumatic childhood as well, and so I had taken a memory from her and taken it. And then a few years ago, I actually mentioned something to my mom that I kept having this repeating dream, and she said, "That's not a dream. That's my memory." From when she was a little girl, that something was her. Yeah, so I've been getting so many confirmations that it's okay, this is just fake, you know?
Yeah. So interesting. That's so cool.
I know I have one question.
Yeah.
And I know from watching your stories on Instagram and popping into your lives, you've been doing some paranormal investigations recently.
Yes.
How does your gift work in that situation with the spirits that are kind of lingering and they're kind of, you know, kind of stuck or trapped behind? How does that work?
Yeah, so for me, I find a lot of the spirits that I have had encounters with are lost souls and they need help. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when we pass on from here, especially if we've been through a lot of trauma, a lot of the spirits that I see have had really difficult lives. And sometimes your soul lingers here in the 3D world, but it's like, you know, they're in 2D and we're in 3D and not everybody see them. And so when I go on the paranormal investigations, usually that's what pops in for me is the lost soul, and then I just help them to. I'm able to tap into their archives as well and see kind of what happened to them, and really they just want like validation from me. It's like, hey, yeah, this happened to you, and you know, it must suck that you're just here lingering around. I can help you go to wherever your soul needs to go to next. And so we tap into the archives and I help them just set the intention, okay, ask your own spirit guides to bring you where your soul's meant to go next so that you're not stuck lingering here. And so that's what you were seeing. We had just done that at a haunted cemetery up the street from our house.
And do you ever have like any kind of pushback from any of those souls? That they're just like, no, or...
I have only one time. Only one time there was a spirit attached to my little sister. And a lot of these souls, like, for example, this old man had been lingering around for like 100 years. And, you know, when you're there lingering for like 100 years and no one's paying attention to you, and then all of a sudden somebody can see you, it's easy for them to attach to you because you're giving them attention. And so it was hard for me to get him. I had to break that attachment that he had to my little sister, and so that's the only time. But typically, usually they want help, and they don't just stay lingering around here in between the voids. So
between the voids.
Huh.
Yeah.
I like that.
Nice word choice.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Are you okay?
I'm not choking on my coffee.
It's okay. We've all had our ailments this week.
To the best of us.
Crippled myself, so
I nearly crippled myself, so.
So, Nat, do you want to dive into ours a little bit, and Nyko can give her feedback and kind of talk about what she was experiencing as we're going through it a little bit?
Yeah.
Feel free to get as personal as you want with anything that came through to you that we might not have caught on to while we were in there.
Yeah.
And everything like that. So
we're a really transparent podcast too, so you can really say whatever you want.
Open book. You can say back then she was ugly, she had a snaggle too.
She stank.
Like, I don't care. You can say whatever you think you need to say.
So, do you kind of want to explain, like, your beginning process, like, before you meet with someone and how you guide them to where they're going?
Yeah, sure. So what I do first, because I work with people around the world who I've never met before, and it might be kind of nerve-wracking you guys might have felt a little nervous going into it, like, I don't know what I'm going to be shown. Yeah. And because we've never met each other before, I like to do a little meditation before I chat. And even like when we took the break, I did the meditation for the next one. And so I do a little meditation, and I have all of these little knickknacks on a mountain shelf that are different colors. There's crystals and feathers and coins and all kinds of little knick-knacky things that I find on all of my excursions and adventures. And my guides will just get me to choose random things. So I connect to your spirit guides, and they might say something like, oh, jellyfish, a red crystal, a blue pen, and then I'll pick all of these items, and from there, all of those little mini items might tell me, oh, the jellyfish spirit is telling me that you need to be more in a flow, or this red crystal is telling me that you're not feeling really grounded, and this blue pen is telling me that you're trying to speak, but you have a blocked throat chakra. And so before I talked to both of you, I did a pre-meditation, and I always get a lot of information correct in doing that. It surprises me too, because I write down the most random things. I might say, did a dog shit in your shoe this morning? And so it doesn't surprise me. I just say whatever pops up, and it's usually correct. So
it's like, how did you know?
I should have pulled up the pictures that I do have the pictures. I saved them to their own album so I could look at them.
I know that for me, mine's easy. You said every single thing was the color green.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. You're like, green, green, green. You were like, green candle, peppermint, like cedar, and then all of the crystals were green.
Yeah. And for Nat, I normally don't like candles, and your spirit guide got me to go in the bathroom, get my candle, just the red candle I had in the bath that morning, and bring it out and light it for you. And you're like, oh my god, I love candles.
Yeah. It's like we have so many candles, and my boyfriend Dylan, he's the candle guy. And then she pulled an apple, and I was like, Dylan loves fucking apples. He always eats an apple every single day, at least once a day. And then she pulled the sand dollar. Dylan loves the beach. He wants to go to the beach all the time. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? And then
she pulls out reading her mind.
She pulls out the tarot cards, and it's the animal spirit tarot that my grandma gave me from like the 80s. And I was like, what the hell is happening? I was like, okay, we're done. I don't even have to go to my records. Like, this is already crazy. And then there was two different cards that really stood out to me, that once after I went through the whole the whole process and everything, and then going back and looking at what you sent us, I was like, oh, holy shit. Like, this one card is the Protection Guardian, and it's this woman with a shield. And then the other one is the High Priestess, and it's this woman in these, like, robes, like some kind of a toga robe thing with, like, there's a black cat. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, maybe my subconscious, I was like, what's going on? And then, yeah, so there's
it's really interesting to me, because even sometimes, it's really interesting to me how the spirit got the messages in. Even I might be feeling super irritated, I'll feel your emotions, I'll be dropping everything, and then my client will say, oh my god, I'm so flustered, I can't stop dropping everything. I'm like, girl, like, I can feel it.
But
it really helps you kind of settle in and believe, okay, my spirit guides are here, and she's already connected, so this is gonna go well.
Yeah. Oh my god, wait, hang on. Also, there was a deer card. She pulled a deer card, too. What the hell? Okay, let's get into... After you kind of, dip your fingers in, you pull all these items, and you talk about them, what do you do next?
So then I tell you all the information I got, and everyone's usually mind blown. Like, And so, and lots of times I'm channeling that. I don't even remember. That's why I sent you a picture, because when I'm channeling, it's not me. I'm like, sometimes things in certain accents or words that I don't use. And so then we have our little meet and greet, and I give you the information, and then it's important to set your intention. So I just explain to everybody about the Akashic records, how they work. You have to trust your soul that whatever you're shown, and everybody's spirit guides are unique and show them different things. Like your spirit guide might show you numbers, it might show you colors, it might show you symbolism. Mine are sarcastic assholes, like I've told you, so they like to just be very sarcastically assholey and slap me in the face with signs and synchronicities. So, and then we set an intention. So it's always really important to set an intention of what do you want to see? What do you want your soul to show you today? And then I do just a little guided meditation, a relaxation meditation that kind of gets you in a hypnosis state. And then that's when you connect with your guides, and then I guide you in to your records, and you're talking to me while you're inside of your little hypnosis. And I like being guided in myself. It's better because, like you asked earlier about in a scary situation, because your body might be able to feel or hear, see, smell all the things that's happening to you in there. So sometimes if you're feeling a little nervous, or it's dark, or you're lost, something's happening, it's good to have a guide to be like, hey, kind of help to take a breath and stuff. So I personally like being guided in myself. And so when I guide you in, and everyone's experience is unique to them. You guys both do totally different experiences.
Very different. Very different. And so the intention that I started with was to release the old blockage of, like, my past selves or something.
And boy, did ya.
Which is interesting, because I'm just looking at, the notes that you sent us, and up at the top where it has, like, everything that you pulled and stuff about the cards, it says, shed the old, create peace in your sphere, rebirth and transformation, which is really interesting. And it kind of relates to, and I kind of had an aha moment, and you said that this would happen. You'd be like, it might be a couple weeks from now, but you're going to be like, oh, like this thing's happening or that's happening, and so everything kind of clicked once I reread through everything. And even right now, when we were talking about the items and what I took from the experience, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, but it does click, and it's so interesting. So yeah, I'll explain my trip. The journey.
Actually dying. My trip. Just how you said it.
I was not on acid. I was not on shrooms. Not that kind of trip. But it was an experience. So, like she said, we started with a guided meditation. And I kind of imagined myself in a field at first. And we're walking to this big tree to go sit down. And while I'm walking to the tree, there's a deer to the left of me, and it's walking me to the tree. And I noticed that the field is the Bennington battlefield, which is like my safe space. Like if I'm ever like I need to go somewhere, but or don't want to go home, I'll go to the Bennington battlefield and sit there at the picnic table next to that big tree. And so I guess that was my safe place to start. So we sit down at the tree, and I'm like becoming one with the tree to the roots, and feeling everything around me. And so I get up to go follow down this path, and I see these big, giant, like, marble gold doors that are just barely cracked open a little bit, and you could see the light coming in between them. And in front of the doors is this black cat with, like, bright green eyes. And I was like, okay, there's a cat. All right. So I go in and I'm following the cat inside these big giant marble doors, and I'm greeted to this big, like, expansive room filled of marble columns, just like on both sides, going like all the way down, and it just fades into darkness. That's how big the room is. And in the room, the only thing that I can see besides the columns is up on the right side, a little bit further down, is this black, like, Greek style vase, like black and gold. I guess I don't know if it was marble or what it was, but it was just black and gold, like a really big vase, and it was on a pedestal. And so I don't remember if I started by looking at the vase or if that's when I met my first guide besides the cat, but it all happened like around the same time. But I went and looked at the vase. I went to look inside of it, and it was empty. I don't know. It was just there. So we were kind of just looking around this area. She said, if you have any soul guides, reach out to them, tell them that it's okay to, come out, like, and meet us, basically. And all of a sudden, there was this woman there, and she was in, like, Greek, like, toga, cloth dress, white cloth dress. And she had a gold, like, armband around her left arm, and really, really tightly curled brown hair, and, like, emerald green eyes, like, really striking deep green eyes, and she was really tall. Like, she was, like, 5'10", almost 6 feet tall. And she introduced herself to me, and she said her name was Celeste. And I was like, I literally don't know what to say to you because you're so beautiful. I do not know how to talk to you. And I was like, hi, like, hey. And so she kind of just told me to, like, walk further down and see what was, what was this way. So I start walking into the darkness, and it's almost like misty. Like, there's some kind of mist in the air. And as I'm walking in the darkness, I can hear, like, water dripping, water flowing. And I'm like, I think there's a waterfall. And I keep walking a little bit further, and it's like a cave type area with this natural waterfall flowing into a, like, pool that has it's like a circle, half circle shape with, like, rocks, on the edge. And in the pool is a mermaid. I don't know. And she has this long blue mermaid tail and long blonde hair that's, like, wet and flat to her face. And she just comes up and swims up to the edge of the pool and puts her arms on top of the edge and, like, kind of puts her chin on her arms and says, "You're sad." And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm sad. And she didn't have anything else to say. She just kind of stared at me, and she was smiling. But she's like, "You're sad. Like, it's okay, but you're sad." And I was like, all right. So I don't know if she's an actual guide or if she was just some kind of, I can't think of the word, like a visual that I had to see or something. So at that point, we were like, okay, let's go to the timeline. Let's get in your protective bubble, like, surround yourself in your gold bubble. And, your timeline could be either a circle, a line from left to right, or, like, any way, shape, or form how you envision it. And so I envisioned this gold line from left to right, and I could see myself kind of like zooming into an area, and it kind of went like a little bit to the left of the middle. And so I was like, okay, I guess we're going here. And all of a sudden, I could just see myself surrounded by a bunch of people. And it was like 1800s style clothing. Like, there were some carriages, there were like horses, there were a bunch of people walking around in this cobblestone courtyard area. And I was like, whoa, this is really crazy. And I was like, just off the top of my head, like, for some reason in my mind it was like, this is 1829, and I was like, I guess it's 1829. So I'm looking around and I'm like, there's way too many people. I'm gonna go into this alley. I see this alleyway across the courtyard. I'm gonna go down that alley. So I start walking down the alley, and at this point I don't know if I'm myself or if I'm someone else, because like I look down and I'm in this like red dress with like this bustle skirt, but I also feel like there's another lady there. Like, I am myself in this situation, but there's also another woman who's like me also. It's really weird. And she was there. She had brown hair tied up into a bun, and she was also in that style of clothing. But I think she had like a blue dress, but I'm not sure. And I'm kind of following her down this alleyway, and all of a sudden I feel like the hair on the back of my neck raise, and I'm like, there's somebody behind us. Like, there's somebody really creepy behind us. And so I turn around and I look, and there's this big, tall, creepy looking man with a top hat and a mustache who's following us down this alleyway, and there's nobody else but me and this woman. And I'm like, okay, this is really creepy. I don't like this. And at the end of the alleyway, there's a little door on the side, and I could see like a flickering light, almost like from a candle. And so we go down and go into this room, because I'm like, I'm getting away from this man. So we go into the room, and it's almost like a boarding house. Like, it is like, there's a bed in the left corner, there's a desk in the far left corner, and there's a candle on the desk, and there's a letter on the desk. And I go to read the letter, and I can't really make out exactly what it's saying, but it says something about this woman's children, and something about, or it's signed by this man named William. And William wasn't her husband. It wasn't somebody she was like intimate with or anything like that, or related to. She knew that they existed, but she wasn't close to them. I have no clue who it was, but they were writing about her children. And I turn around and the man's there. And I'm like, this man has done something wrong to this woman. I don't know what it is, but I don't like him. He's creepy. Like, I don't know what to do. And so, what did we do in this situation? I think I know that I was like, okay, what can I do to help? Because, of course, I had Nyko guiding me, and she's like, what can you do to make this not scary? Like, she's like talking me down, like, what can you do to protect this lady in this situation? And all of a sudden I just had a giant shield like attached to my arm, and I pushed the guy all the way back out the other side of the alley where we originally came in, and he like disappeared into the group of people. So I like literally blocked him from doing anything to this lady and was like, no. And I was like, okay, I feel like we're safe, but I want to walk her to the other end of the alley away from this guy to be sure that he's not coming back. And so I walk her to the other side, and there's not as many people, you know, there's maybe like 1 or 2 carriages, maybe a couple people, but it feels a lot calmer and a lot safer. And we're like, okay, is there, you know, something that you want to give her or tell her or anything like that? And all I remember is that I wanted to give her this gold locket. And I don't think there was any pictures or anything inside. It was just a gold locket. And so I gave it to her, and I gave her a hug, and then I got back in my bubble and came back to the timeline. And I'm back in this big giant room with the columns, and on almost directly across from the vase that was in there now was a sword and a shield. And so I go look over at the sword and the shield, and I can feel somebody behind me. Obviously not creepy in this situation, but I could feel like a different presence behind me. And I turn around, and it's like this giant dude with short brown hair, not browned. He has short brown hair and also has green eyes. And he's in like a suit of armor. Like he's a knight. And he didn't say anything to me. I don't know his name, but I had this overwhelming feeling like, we're here to protect you. Like, we will keep you safe. And, yeah, so they didn't really have anything else to say after that. So they kind of walked me out towards the doors, and my cat friend was kind of like walking in and out of my legs, like how cats are like, pet me, or, you know, and I kind of got the feeling like, we like you and we want you to come back. We can't wait to see you again. And I walk back down to my tree, sit back down, and am guided out of the meditative state.
Yeah. And so even like in a scary situation like yours, the reason why our soul would choose to bring us there is because something from our past is blocking you in this current timeline. So your soul felt like you needed to go to that time frame and reclaim a part of yourself to help you in this current timeline. So how have you felt since doing that session around fear, or have you noticed any changes?
I have, actually. Yeah, so on my notes, it says my takeaway was that my guides are saying to be strong and make the changes that I need to, and that I have what I need to do so. And considering everything that you pulled in the beginning and the whole, you know, I'm my own protector, like, I'm able to do this, even if it's something that I fear, I can do it, I have the capability to do it, and I did something pretty significant within the past couple weeks that I had been fearing to do for about a year, and it's just insane how related it was to everything. So, and it just clicked, like, when we started talking about this, and I looked at everything again, and I was like, oh my god, that's exactly what I needed, and I figured it out, and I did it.
Yeah. And that's the thing, too, is that sometimes people think you're going to get results, something happens right away, but it, like you said, might take up to, like, a few weeks when you're still getting aha moments, like today, you're like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say that it was definitely super helpful, and I told the whole story to my family at lunch one day, and my dad, who's super, super religious, he's, like, incredibly religious, he was like, whoa, that's really cool. He's like, whoa, that's so interesting.
Yeah. It is, right? It's just too many, that's what I like, that it's too many synchronicities that you can't just be like, yeah, you lost your mind.
Yeah, exactly. What I thought was interesting that I'm now thinking about now is that for some reason all the the guides that I met, and this is why I think the mermaid isn't a guide, but all the other guides have green eyes. Like, even the cat, Celeste, and the man, they all have, I mean, different colors of green, but they're all green. And the mermaid has blue eyes, so I don't know if she is a guide or if she was just a visual trying to tell me something.
Yeah. Well, because didn't she's the one that was telling you how you were feeling, that you were sad?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, you know, in tarot, like, water cups, it's about emotion. So the mermaid being in the water, that was probably just, like, an extra representation of your emotions, right? That she was going to talk about emotions.
But also, I think it was, like, probably something from my subconscious also there, because I'm an Aquarius, and I see so many, like, Aquarius symbolism as mermaids, and, like, that probably was just another thing to, like, click together in my brain.
Yeah, everyone's guides and symbolisms are so unique to them, so that's why I like taking you in as well, because, like, you could get a different interpretation from something. Let's just say I saw something and I told you I see it this way, but it might resonate with you in a different way, right? So that's more like that, how people are able to take things that resonate with them, how their soul chooses to present it to them. So, yeah.
I just still think it's hilarious that all of Nat's spirit guides have brown hair and green eyes.
I don't get it. It's like all my spirit guides are Katie or something.
I am the physical embodiment of your...
You're my conscience, okay? You're my magic 8-ball. What do I do?
No, what's my first thing, always? When it comes to you, like when you're saying something. Like you're telling me something, I'm like, no, you need to do this. Stand up for yourself. No. I'm like, you will protect yourself. So I think it's hilarious.
Katie's a stand-in, like, keeper of my records.
Yeah, well, you guys definitely seem to have a soul contract, so.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But I think you really reclaimed your power. That was all about you reclaiming your power.
Really cool.
I think so.
And I did try to go and do it again by myself. And I started it, and then I got really freaked out, and so I went in to, like, the 1950s, and there was a lady washing the dishes. She was, like, a housewife. And her son came in with a toy gun and was like, bang! I'm gonna shoot you just like Dad wants to. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And this man came in, and he was, like, massive in the door frame and was, like, being really mean to this lady. And I was like, I don't know what to do. So I literally just handed her a shotgun and was like, I'm sorry. And
the most American way of dealing with anything.
It was so bad. And I was like, this is probably why I should always have a guide with me. Because I don't know what to do in these situations. So that was really...
Well, you helped her out before you came back out.
Huh?
At least you gave her some protection before you came back out.
That's true.
Oh,
yeah, because I was like, I don't want to just, like back out and leave it. I want to kind of follow, you know, what we did the first time, but I was like, I don't really know how to help. I'm so sorry. Like, I literally said, I'm sorry, and handed her a gun.
Yeah. For me, too, that's why I like having a guide, right? Like you said, the first one was kind of talking you down and just reminding you, because you do feel the things that person's feeling in that time.
Like, it's really easy to go off the rails if you don't have somebody there with you, I think.
Yeah, even me, I like to have a guide with me. Because I feel, you know, the deeper you are in awareness of your soul and the things, the more deeper healing things. And a lot of times I've died in past lives that I've had to go back and save myself in that moment.
Yeah.
I feel so bad because, like, the last 2 times I've tried to do it, I've done it 4 times now. And the last 2 times I've gotten to, and I do it like right before bed because it's when I'm the most relaxed. And I'll go in and I'll just be like in my holding space, as I like to call it. And then I will literally just like fall asleep because I'm so comforted. I'm just like, yep, this is nice. I'll just like, done. Just asleep.
And that's okay. Like, if you fall asleep, trust that what you're meant to do, like, you're just in this safe space. You're trusting that you're in your record, you're in that safe space. I did a guided group meditation last week, and one lady fell asleep right at the beginning and didn't wake up till the end. And the next day she messaged me and was like, oh my gosh, it worked. The thing that we were learning about manifesting success into our lives. And even though she was asleep, her subconscious mind was still listening to everything. And the next day, still. So
cool.
I just hear like Elijah snoring.
Okay, Katie.
Yeah, so how about you, Kate? How was your experience?
Very different from Natalie. Both of them. So Nat basically gave all the spiel about like how you get into it, how you get there. Mm-hmm. So when I was connecting like with my tree, when I was in like my forest, it could not have been any more different than Nat's. Mine was more like a redwood tree forest, which is hilarious because I've never even seen a redwood tree in person. But I just know they're absolutely humongous, and I guess that kind of brought me like some sense of comfort. So as the best I can describe it, I was in like the forest in like Washington somewhere. Like literally straight, like I put myself in fucking Twilight because I can't help myself. So and I just found this like massive tree, and I sat down and I was just relaxing. And this isn't going to resonate with Nat at all, and Nyko, I don't know if it will with you, but it was that one scene in Harry Potter from the Chamber of Secrets where they're like going in, they get trapped in Devil's Snare, and it like literally just like engulfs them, and they just get like sink through the floor. And that's how it was for me. Like I could feel like the roots like climbing around me and like literally sucking me like into the tree. And then when I came out into my space, I was just like out of the tree again. I was just like, comfort, so nice. So, and then I stood up and it's pitch black because that's my soul apparently. And it was just like cobblestone everywhere, like on the floor, around me, on the ceiling, like I was in some type of tunnel. And the more I've gone into it, the more defined the stones have actually got. So instead of it being like a black tunnel, now I'm like actually seeing like each individual stone and how it's set. So that's like really neat. And now I can kind of conjure like a lantern or something if I'm like, too dark, need something to see. So that's been interesting. But basically I'm walking down this very dark, long tunnel, and there's just glowing light at the end. And I'm like, well, that's ironic. Light at the end of the tunnel. How optimistic can I get? But I go into this room and it's like literally just sunlight everywhere. Just like blinding bright light. Like there's literally like no definition of anything. I'm just in a white room like I'm in solitary confinement or something. Because I find comfort in the strangest things possible, apparently. And the first time I look over and there was just like this woman like sitting on the floor, and she had very short, I believe it was brown hair, and she was just like crouched in a ball and would like not look up at me. She was refusing. And after talking to you afterwards and what you were saying, you basically said my spirit guides were like, no, I don't want to talk to you, just go. So I wonder if that was more like a physical embodiment of myself because I was closed off to everything. So I was like curled in on myself and just like was not willing to see or talk to anything. Because the intention I had set going into this was to learn more about my abilities with spirit and like where my connection to them kind of draws from. And so we basically ignored the whole exploration part, finding out anything about the room that I was in. We were just like, okay, we just need to go. And for me, my timeline was so different. Like, Nat pictured like a nice flat line that was gold and beautiful, and mine was literally just like a vortex or like a black hole. And I was just like, okay, and like pretty much just like threw myself into it. And like I can't see anything around me, and I would just be like, okay, this is where I'm gonna pop off. Like, just when it feels right, kind of trusting that intuition, essentially. And I was like, yep, now's a good time. And basically the best way I can describe it is like when you're doing a cannonball into a pool. That you just kind of like tuck yourself together and just like
tuck and roll.
Pretty much tuck and roll. And that's kind of what it felt like I did. And the next thing I knew, the first time I was in this field, and it was like just a huge overgrown field, and I was surrounded by like wildflowers, specifically blue salvia, which is oddly enough one of my favorite flowers now. And I was just very confused. I was like, why the hell am I here? Because I have to question everything. And Nyko did a lot of guiding and leading throughout my session in comparison to Nat's. I was just like, I don't know what to do, so I'm just gonna stand here and do absolutely nothing until someone tells me to do something. But I eventually like made my way down this path, and there was this man at the end of it, and he was tall with brown hair and blue eyes, which is odd because that's my current boyfriend now. And it was just like I was in love with this man, but there was like this weird kind of like star-crossed lovers thing, like we weren't meant to be together. And then I was suddenly being like dragged back to a village by who I deemed to be my brother, and he had like braided hair, and I was just not a happy camper. And this other man had just like gone the other direction. He was like, I don't even know if he was mad or sad or whatever. I was worried about my own self and just being mad. And then like the next thing I knew, I was in like what I would describe as like a hut, like a small tiny little house, and I was just raging, like absolutely pissed off. And I was trying to contact the old gods, and they weren't listening. And then I was like, you know what? Nope, not doing this anymore. I'm mad. Nothing's real. I'm not believing in anything. And then Nyko was like, you're gonna write a note, and you're either gonna bury it or burn it, or you're gonna get rid of it. And I'm like, immediately, I'm like, I'm burning it. And I was like setting it on fire. And then I had fled this little cottage village situation. I don't remember if it was in the nighttime or if it was like early in the morning, but I ended up following that same path I had before, kind of stalking through the woods I'd never had before. And I'm pretty sure I was like very unprepared. I had just left without like a care in the world, didn't pack anything. And I remember I stumbled upon this village, and there was like pigs and animals like in a pen. And it was obviously kind of like a new settlement. They had like a church with like the steeple, the whole white thing going on. And there was like not a soul around, but out of curiosity, I went and I looked inside the church, and there was this beautiful, tall, dark, and handsome man that I was in love with, sitting with another woman, very like romantically. And I immediately was like scorned and just like mad. I was like, screw this. I'm gonna go pave my own way, gonna go do my own thing. Shocker, I know. Clearly my soul changed a lot in hundreds of years, because this was, I believe it was 1718 was the year I thought it was when I went back. And I just remember when I was exiting, I gave her a journal and was like, go write your own story, carve your own path. And like that's kind of where it ended for me. Like I didn't feel like I needed to do anything else there. It was kind of discovering where that block was when I had put it up. And I just remember her going off towards like the sea, and I was just like, okay, I'm ready to leave now. And I came back, and there was still no one in my room. Just me. And then I went back to my tree, and I was happy again. And I don't know if you experienced anything else, but for me, it felt like just very straightforward. Like I didn't want to stick around to discover anything I didn't have to. I was just like, we're going for it. I want to get some answers. But the second time around, when I did it by myself, I followed that same meditation ritual. The tree thing was literally the same. Sucked in, spit back out. And this time the stones, like I said, were more defined. I could conjure a lantern. And I basically just think it was the embodiment of myself being more aware and more accepting of like my own connection with all of it. And this time when I had gotten into that bright room, there was still obviously not much there, but there was a woman this time. And she was a tall, dark-skinned woman, just like Nat said, drop-dead gorgeous. And I can't, for the life of me, remember her name, because I'm awful. I want to say it's like Georgiana, something along those lines. And she hasn't come back, and it's probably because I can't remember her name, because I'm terrible. And but I'm awful with names, so I hope by now she understands that. And I just remember like looking around, there still wasn't much there. So I set the intention of learning a lesson and taking something with me that would help me improve my current life. And I went through what I like to call the vortex, what you're referring to as the timeline. And I came out in 1944. So, you know, kind of right around World War II. And I was a child. I was on a playground playing outside. You know, I could feel the sun. And this one was much more vivid. Like, I was not in control of anything. When I first started, I was on the outside looking in. I wasn't this person. Just more like an observer. And I was watching as she was like playing on the playground and just having fun, like running around with other children. And all of a sudden she just like looked in pain and just like collapsed. And that is when I kind of shifted into her, like into her body, and I was looking through it through her eyes. And I want to say she was like 6 or 7, very young. And she just like couldn't feel her limbs. Like everything was just going numb. And to the point where she had become like paralyzed. And she like, I was flown through like this rotation of like visiting doctors trying to find a cure, and like nothing was working. And when we went the first time, I could still move my limbs. Like I had like the ability to do that. Like I could wiggle my fingers, wiggle my toes. This time I could not move if I wanted to. I tried. It was literally like I was paralyzed, like from the neck down. And it was terrifying. I was like, okay, well, I guess we're riding this one out, because can't break myself out of it. And eventually I was placed in an iron lung. So one of those gigantic machines that literally your head just sticks out of, and it basically ends up breathing for you. So I was just like this young little girl, just like trapped in this giant machine, couldn't do anything. And I just remember being miserable. And that's kind of what I took from it, was being happy and appreciative of the opportunities you have, because you don't know when it's going to get taken away.
Yeah.
And I remember before I left, I had given her a like hair clip, like a barrette, and it had a bunch of like bright flowers on it, because on the top of the iron lung, she had like a mirror so she could like look at herself. And there was like one on the side as well. So like if she was moving her head, she was going to try and do something she could at least see kind of around her a little bit. And I remember wanting her to have like a piece of the outdoors because she loved being outside so much, where she could always see it. And I gave her a kiss on the forehead, and then I left. And I just remember like waking up essentially from that one, just being like shell-shocked, like, oh my god, like what was that? But the odd part to me was I immediately knew she had polio. Like, without anyone saying it, like, I knew she had polio. And, like, most people that were put in the iron lung had some very advanced form of polio. And I often joke with my family and friends that now, in this lifetime, I run like I have polio. Because I don't bend my legs. So it's like I'm in the polio braces, like I physically cannot bend my legs. So I'm like, oh, well, I guess I know where that one comes from then. And I just remember being like, oh my gosh, because I've been fighting internally with myself to get my ass up and work out for the past, like, 6 months. And, like, that was that last push I needed. It was, like, the final straw. And then I was up and I was, like, working out a little bit each day, like, eating better, you know, before I fell and destroyed my ankle. So it was just, everything has just made so much sense. And for me, the results have been a little bit more immediate. Like, I haven't had to wait for the confirmation. But I definitely have noticed a change in myself in being more accepting of the things I'm interested in and being more vocal about it than I would have been before. Like, into the witchy stuff, you know? Like, I'm being more open about it when I'm talking with people. And, like, my experiences. Things that I would have before just, like, kept quiet about and not said anything. Just self-acceptance, I think, has been more of my thing. So couldn't have been any different any more different than Nat's, but it was funny to me just to see the comparison between each of ours as we went through. So yeah,
and that's what my spirit guides told me, that, you know, we can use the Akashic records as a tool to go back and reclaim all of those pieces that of those situations we were in, and we might have lost a little piece of ourselves at that point, and just going back and reclaiming that for ourselves can help us so much in this current timeline. And I was gonna, as you guys are both explaining that, I'm getting like another visual for Nat, for example. She was reclaiming her power for something, so that makes sense why her timeline was like gold and glittery, and maybe seem like Nat's more of like a gold and glittery kind of person, because she just said she loves the gold. But yours was like the reason why you were removing like your spiritual blockages, and you had lost your lover because of your beliefs, and his religious beliefs didn't coincide. So you're like, well, I'm just going back to this black vortex, like, you know, because it wasn't a good moment for you. So your soul is showing you the symbolism, and that's very unique. I like how you've been now more able to be more open about the different things. And so I have like in my program that I created to help people, it's like a 12-week program, and you get to do different specific things in each session, and at the end of the sessions, like the whole program, people are getting so much crazy results. I had one lady, she couldn't have a baby, and she did my program, and she did a lot of healing around bringing forward a baby for her life, and she manifested a baby. She's due actually in a few weeks.
Wow.
Manifested her dream home. I work with a lot of spiritual healers as well who do the same one that you did, Kate, where they remove their blockages. And a lot of women, for example, were just like using herbs to heal themselves, and they were deemed witches and killed, myself included. In a lot of my lifetimes where I was being killed was because I just like using herbs to heal myself. I was on this and people were seasick, and I was giving them mint, and they tossed me off the ship and called me a witch. And so just reclaiming those pieces of ourselves, it's so powerful for this time frame to help us. Yeah, so I like that you guys have been practicing going in, because it's such an amazing tool to you guys have been seeing results. So I just
I definitely have to try it again and not freak out. And just like remind myself that I'm safe and I'm trying to help someone.
Yeah.
I just have to stay awake, apparently. No. But thank you so much for coming on. This is definitely, I know already, it's been a treat for all of our listeners.
Yeah.
It's so different than anything
such
we've
a good
done.
episode.
So tell them where they can find you, all of the amazing services that you offer, and just, this is your chance to promote the hell out of yourself and do it. You got it. I know you do.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. It's Soul Coach Nyko, and Nyko is spelled Nyko. You can find me there. I do have a program that I run. It's a 12-week program where you fully get to connect with yourself on a soul level, and you get maybe like 5 to 6 sessions guided into your Akashic records. And I do guided ones. I have a Facebook group as well. It's called Akashic Records and Manifesting Abundance. You can look that up. My name on Facebook also, it's Nyko Booties, and so that's Nyko, Nyko, that's my soul name, and Booties is Bootes, and that's just the constellation that my soul originates from. So that's my name on Facebook. You can find me there. And I do one-on-one sessions with people. Just you get to set your intention, and I can guide you into wherever your soul chooses to bring you. And I really love doing this for people. It's so amazing to me. Everyone gets so unique results, and just what it brings forward to your current timeline is just amazing. And I wish that everybody could just learn how to do this. I just want to teach everyone. That's what I was shown one of my very first times going in there, is that I had these soul contracts with a lot of people here in this timeline to help them learn how to connect to their soul on a deeper level in your soul's archive. So if you're listening to this and you feel called to me, or if you've been feeling called to the Akashic Records, then definitely check it out and reach out to me, because it's a sign. It's a sign from the universe that we're meant to chat.
Gives me goosebumps.
And 10 out of 10, Nat and I definitely recommend.
Highly
It was
recommend.
amazing.
Yes.
She is amazing. What she does is amazing. And you definitely won't regret it. I can confirm that now for you.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me on here and just giving me some more. We haven't really chatted a whole lot since your session, so giving feedback. I love getting the feedback too, because it's confirmation to me. I thought I was crazy a little bit doing this by myself, and now I've been doing it with everyone else, and it just even gives myself more confirmation. So
yeah.
No, it was awesome.
You guys are awesome.
So much. Yes, thank you for coming on. We know I'm pretty sure you said you've never done the podcast thing before.
No.
So this was a new experience for you. So we were trading the experiences.
Yes, we traded experiences.
Yeah. I'm not really I'm like an ancient, my soul's ancient. So like I'm an ancient dinosaur, and technology is not really my thing. So the first podcast I actually listened to was your guys, the one with Bianca. I was like, hey, let's do this. Sure, why not?
I love that.
Yes, that's so great.
Awesome.
We love it. So, Nat, do you want to tell the people where they can find us, and we'll wrap this one up?
Yes. We are on Instagram and Facebook, and that's about it. At Wading Into the Void. Please, come check us out. Let us know what you think. We love to hear from you. Our DMs are open. We have a Discord. If you want to chat with us one-on-one, we would absolutely love that. We have a great small little community on Discord. Everyone's super fun. Love chatting. And do you want me to go into the financial stuff? What do you want me to do?
Go for it.
All right. So we have a Patreon.
My mouth hurts from smiling.
We have a Patreon that Katie just finally, kicked into high gear and set up, and we're really going to work on trying to follow everything that we've put forth for everyone who would like to make donations and become patrons on Patreon, not subscribers. We have a couple tiers. If you want to go check them out, just go to patreon.com and search up Wading Into the Void, because we have a super awesome fucking name, and we are very unique. We're the only ones that will come up. And we also have a similar kind of subscription, monthly donations on Spotify for podcasters, which is through Spotify, of course. There is a link directly on our main page that will bring you to the donation page, and it has similar payment tiers. So if you would love to support us in more ways than just following us, $1 goes a long fucking way. That shows us that you support what we're doing and believe in our growth and our passion, which is really great and makes me want to cry all the time.
And what does $1 make you do?
$1 makes a holla.
Honey, boo-boo child. Every day, we have to do it. And as always, we do a little fun wrap-up with these episodes. And we're going to keep it simple today. Mm-hmm. Contact Nyko, access your Akashic records, and embrace who you are, and let your soul bloom. We'll leave it there. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.